Today you'll use a reading and listening method to become fluent faster. We'll read a news article that everyone's talking about. This article is on Taylor Swift's engagement, but this isn't a celebrity gossip or pop news article. This is a business article on the global economic impact of Taylor Swift. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline, The Economics of Obsession, Economic Impact of Taylor Swift's Engagement. Let's review economics compared to economic. In this case, economics is a noun. It is the field or the area of study. So you would say, I'm studying economics. Notice there is always an S. You wouldn't say I'm studying economic. I'm studying economics, because without the S, it is the adjective. So here it's the impact. What type of impact? Political, social, economic impact. This describes it. So it's the adjective. And this article is talking about the economic impact of Taylor Swift's engagement. Now, of course, the engagement is possessive to Taylor Swift. It belongs to her. Engagement is a noun. So it's a thing. It's also commonly used in the adjective form. You will commonly see it in the ED form. Notice the pronunciation, engaged, a softy, engaged, engaged, engaged. Now, because this is the ED form, it functions as the adjective. It describes a state. So you need a verb. You can say Taylor Swift just got engaged, which is true. So to get engaged is when you transition from not engaged, so single or just a girlfriend, to engaged. That is get engaged. This case is conjugated in the past simple. You can also describe her current state. Taylor Swift is engaged. That is true. Or you can describe the length. Taylor Swift has been engaged for 1 week. For 1 week. So this is the starting point in time, because you can't say is engaged for 1 week grammatically. You need to use the present perfect, but this is our verb be in the present perfect form. Taylor Swift has been engaged for 1 week. You could also say this lesson is so engaging, but when you see it in the ing form, you know it has nothing to do with getting married because it isn't used in the ing form. So you know it has a different meaning. In this case, it's an adjective, which means this lesson is so interesting or enjoyable, or this lesson holds my attention. And that's why it's interesting or enjoyable. So hopefully you agree this lesson is so engaging. If you agree with that, put that's right, put that's right in the comments so I know you're engaged. But in that case, it means you're interested. You're paying attention. You're enjoying the lesson, which is different from this meaning. Don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading. Taylor Swift's influence transcends music. So if it transcends music, it means it goes beyond music. Now they're saying this because she's a musician. You would expect that her influence is related to her profession, musician, but it goes beyond that. It transcends music. If you want to be romantic or poetic, since this topic is about an engagement, you can say, my love for you transcends time. It goes beyond time. Or your beauty transcends the stars. It goes beyond the beauty of the stars. Taylor Swift's influence transcends music, impacting economies globally. Okay, so here we have economies, which is the plural form of economy. So you can talk about your local economy. Now, in this case, it's plural. It's more than one, economies. Her recent engagement announcement. So again, this is a something. It's an announcement about her engagement. And how do you announce your engagement? You probably say on social media, in her case, I got engaged, or I am engaged. We got engaged. You can refer to it as I got engaged, or you can refer to it as we got engaged. Engagement announcement ignited social media. So ignite, that comes from when you light fire. So if you ignite it, it goes up suddenly. So that's what you can imagine with the reaction on social media. All of a sudden there were thousands or millions of people commenting, liking, posting their reactions. That's how ignited social media. Dubbed Swiftonomics. Okay, of course, her last name is Swift. And then this is what word? Of course, economics. Now, not economies, because an economy is the noun for the thing as a whole. And remember, I said economics with the S is what? The field or the area of study. I'm studying economics. Now, this is a clever way of saying economics related to Taylor Swift, and they just took those two words together to form Swiftonomics. Swiftonomics. So the economic impact of Taylor Swift. And they're using dubbed as a replacement to called Swiftonomics, referred to as Swiftonomics. And we often use dubbed when it's not an official term. So you can't look this up in the dictionary most likely and find a definition because it's not an official term, but it's what people commonly use. Dubbed Swiftonomics. Dubbed Swiftonomics, her economic impact is now a Federal Reserve teaching tool. So you could imagine you have a class or a paper or a textbook on Swiftonomics, the economic impact of Taylor Swift.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Economists highlight. Okay, so here, this is a person. It's a person whose profession is economics. An economist. And it's used in the plural form just to refer to the group as a whole. So it's not Joe, the economist, it's economists in general. Just like it's not Jennifer, the teacher, it's teachers in general, right? That would be the difference. But did you notice that pronunciation difference? Economics, economists. Economics, economists. So the syllable stress is different here. You can say, I'm an economist. So con is what you hear the most. Economist. I studied economics. Nomics is what you hear the most at UCLA, the name of a university. I published an economic paper. So these have the same syllable stress on my local economy. So economy and economists have the same syllable stress. Economists highlight how few individuals. Notice few is not a few, it's few. It's focusing on the lack of individuals. Few individuals in modern history wield this combination of cultural magnetism and financial leverage. Let's review wield. This is a verb. Notice that pronunciation. Wield, yield, wield. If you wield usually power, influence, which is how it's used in this context, it means you have it, but you also use it. You use your power and influence to accomplish something. That something can be good, but it can also be negative. You hear this a lot with politicians or leaders who wield their influence or power, but it can often be in a negative case in the news. So in this case, what is she wielding? It's this combination of cultural magnetism. Magnetism, well, you can think of the word origin is a magnet. So things are attracted to a magnet. Now, you can imagine people, fans are attracted to Taylor Swift because of her magnetism. So it's another way of saying charm or charisma, influence even. And financial leverage. So leverage means you have power or influence over someone or something, could be a situation. Now, this again can often be used in the negative because people may find out one of your secrets and then use that as leverage because now they can control you if they have influence or power over you, because if you don't do what they want, you'll reveal their secret. So that is a form of leverage. But a form of leverage can also be her social media influence, her number of fans. That's her leverage. But in this case, they're talking about financial leverage. So her ability to tell her fans to go buy something, and then they do it because she has that control or power over them. Let's keep reading. Her Eras Tour, for example. So this is a great way of incorporating for example, because there aren't a lot of different ways of saying for example. We basically just use this one way. But instead of having it at the very beginning, starting with, for example, her Eras Tour, another way to just add interest or even sound more advanced because you know different sentence structures is by having the something and then saying, for example. But grammatically, this verb is conjugated with the subject. So this doesn't interrupt the grammar of the sentence. Her Eras Tour, for example, has been compared to a G7 summit in terms of the money it channels through cities. So this in terms of is important because it tells you how it was compared to a G7 summit. So in terms of what? In terms of the conversations, in terms of the attendees, in terms of the impact, what? So in this case, it's in terms of the money it channels through cities. So if it channels money, it means that the money flows through the cities. It goes through the cities. So when she arrives for her concert, you can imagine the amount of money that goes through the city increases as a result. It channels through cities. The Federal Reserve even referenced her being Taylor Swift, in reports to illustrate how consumer spending spikes around her performances. Spikes means increases sharply. So if consumer spending is about this on average, but at certain times, like holidays, spending will spike. Maybe even every weekend, spendings at restaurants spike every weekend. And then the same thing. You have spending and then Taylor Swift comes and spending spikes. So greatly increases. So just imagine that. And then it also goes back down after she leaves, or it goes back down after the holiday or on Monday. And here, illustrate is a more advanced way of saying show. So the Federal Reserve even referenced her in reports to show how consumer spending spikes. Illustrate, demonstrate, those are more advanced C1, C2 ways. So if you are giving a formal presentation, if you're in a job interview or certain formal context, you could use illustrate or demonstrate instead of show. Let's continue. Cities from Chicago to Tokyo. So they're using from X to Y to show the range. So you're supposed to imagine you have Chicago, you have Tokyo, and you're supposed to imagine it's everything in between as well. So this from X to Y, and then you generally have nouns, but you could also have verbs, is a very advanced and common sentence structure. So cities from Chicago to Tokyo have reported hotel occupancy surges. So surge and spike, they're the same things. So hotel occupancy, that represents the number of people staying at a hotel. This is very much a hotel term. And it can also be used in real estate as well. So if occupancy surges, the same mental image with spike. So greatly or sharply increases, we can have that exact same definition there. So you could replace these. Packed public transit. So they have reported these things. So first thing they've reported, hotel occupancy surges, packed public transit. Packed means very crowded, very busy, and retail booms. A boom is also a period of a lot of activity. So they might talk about real estate booms or a housing market boom. Well, that's real estate actually. Consumer spending boom. So consumer spending would relate to retail. So it's a period of a lot of activity. And how is there retail activity? Well, it's spending. So again, you can think of it as a spike or a surge. But the phenomenon extends beyond dollars. So the phenomenon that's talking about this period of surging and spiking and booms and everything going from this to that. So that's the phenomenon. It extends beyond dollars. So it goes beyond. That would just be extend. It goes beyond dollars. So there's more of an impact than simply the amount of spending. That's the dollars. Seismologists recorded earthquake-like tremors. So a tremor is when the ground shakes. Tremors during her Seattle shows. So this is the impact beyond dollars. These earthquake-like tremors caused by tens of thousands of fans. So you might be comfortable with thousands of fans, hundreds of fans. So a large quantity of. Notice we have the S here and the S on the noun, fans, the people who support Taylor Swift. Thousands of fans, but thousands is not enough for Taylor Swift. There's tens of thousands. So you have your 1,000 and you add a 10 in front of it and it becomes 10,000. But because there's the S on it, there's even more. Probably there should be even more than that to talk about the number of people who go to Taylor Swift concerts. Tens of thousands of fans jumping in unison. So in unison means they're jumping at the same time. And you can imagine tens of thousands of people jumping at the same time was enough to have tremors that were recorded by seismologists. That is one of the impacts beyond spending, beyond dollars. Let's continue. Sociologists note, so again, this is a job title. Seismologist, this is also a job title. Sociologist, that is also a job title. Sociologists note, so this is a more advanced way of saying sociologists say that her ability, they note it. So to note something, this is a verb form. Sociologists note that her ability, so Taylor Swift's ability to foster belonging. If you foster belonging, it means you create it, but you also encourage it to keep going. So you can think of it as create and encourage belonging and community among fans, translates into tangible cultural and financial momentum. Tangible, if something is tangible, it means you can feel it, you can taste it, you can touch it. It's something real, not just a concept. You have the impact, the real impact. One you can taste, touch, smell. There's something real about it. So tangible, cultural, and financial momentum. The obsession, however, has economic layers. Secondary ticket markets thrive with resale prices skyrocketing. So secondary ticket markets, that would be if you buy your ticket for a Taylor Swift concert at an official box office. The box office is the area where you buy the ticket, maybe Ticketmaster, for example, or on her website. But a secondary would be an unofficial channel. So someone probably buys the ticket and then resells it to someone else. So these ticket markets thrive. They do really well with resale prices. Yeah. So I buy the Taylor Swift ticket from the official channel, maybe her website, but then I sell it to you for double or triple. So that's the skyrocketing. You could also use prices surging or spiking. So it's a sharp increase. So skyrocketing, double, triple, quadruple, maybe even more. Airlines and travel companies adjust capacity to match concert dates. So if they adjust capacity, it might be that regularly they have 100 spots available, but then when they know a few days before the concert, they're going to offer 500 spots. So that's how they would adjust capacity. They would either offer more or less, but in this case, it makes sense that they would offer more to match concert dates. Even small businesses, from nail salons to custom t-shirt makers. So here's another example of our from X to Y. And again, you're supposed to imagine, okay, we have nail salon companies, we have t-shirt makers, and everything in between. So that's the from to. You're supposed to imagine everything in between. Benefit from fans preparing for events. So what they did here is they gave examples of the layers. So of course, a layer is one thing on top of the other. So you have the primary spending on the concert ticket, then you have secondary spending, and then you have nail salons, t-shirt makers, buses, hotels. So all of those are the different layers. You can think of it as the different aspects as well, the different elements involved. Let's review two examples with the from X to Y structure. The X and Y can either be nouns or verbs, but a gerund verb. You can say her concerts, so Taylor Swift concerts, her concerts attract everyone from teens to retirees. So remember, in your mind, you're supposed to imagine a teenager who is 13 all the way to a retiree who is 75 years old. So you're supposed to imagine everyone in between. So these are nouns, from teens, the short form of teenagers, to retirees, people who are retired. Or you can say she enjoys all forms of art, from painting, so that's your verb in ing, from painting to writing poetry. And then you're supposed to imagine all the different forms of art in between. So it's a great sentence structure that you can have in a more everyday context, or you can absolutely use it in a more formal context as well. Let's continue. Her rise, so Taylor Swift's rise, her rise also poses questions, so results in questions. Is this sustainable? So if it's sustainable, it means she's able to continue having this much impact on the world economy. So is it sustainable, Or is Swiftonomics, remember this is the economics related to Taylor Swift, or is Swiftonomics a temporary boom, so a temporary increase in activity tied to a unique cultural moment? So tied to means related to a unique cultural moment. Regardless, so they ask the question and then they say regardless. The purpose of this is to say it doesn't matter what the answer is. It doesn't matter if it's yes, it's sustainable, or no, it isn't. Yes, it's temporary, or no, it isn't. It doesn't matter. So this one word is actually very important. Regardless, Swift has provided a living case study. So we can study this. That's a case study. And it's taking place now. We can see it in real time. If you're studying Swiftonomics, you can open up Instagram and see this in real time. So that's the living case study. You can study it now. In how fandom translates. So fandom just represents everything related to the fans of Taylor Swift, how fandom translates into GDP movement. Of course, GDP, gross domestic product. So this represents the economy. So goods being created and sold related to Taylor Swift. You can think of this as a t-shirt with Taylor Swift on it, a concert ticket. Someone has to create it, but someone has to buy it. So that would be GDP movement. Universities and business schools are already using her tours to teach macroeconomic concepts in real time. So that's what we talked about in the sense that it's a living case study. It's taking place now. And that's the end of the article. So now I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. The economics of obsession. Economic impact of Taylor Swift's engagement. Taylor Swift's influence transcends music, impacting economies globally. Her recent engagement announcement ignited social media. Dubbed Swiftonomics, her economic impact is now a Federal Reserve teaching tool. Economists highlight how few individuals in modern history wield this combination of cultural magnetism and financial leverage. Her Eras Tour, for example, has been compared to a G7 summit in terms of the money it channels through cities. The Federal Reserve even referenced her in reports to illustrate how consumer spending spikes around her performances. Cities from Chicago to Tokyo have reported hotel occupancy surges, packed public transit, and retail booms. But the phenomenon extends beyond dollars. Seismologists recorded earthquake-like tremors during her Seattle shows, caused by tens of thousands of fans jumping in unison. Sociologists note that her ability to foster belonging and community among fans translates into tangible cultural and financial momentum. The obsession, however, has economic layers. Secondary ticket markets thrive, with resale prices skyrocketing. Airlines and travel companies adjust capacity to match concert dates. Even small businesses, from nail salons to custom t-shirt makers, benefit from fans preparing for events. Her rise also poses questions. Is it sustainable, or is Swiftonomics a temporary boom tied to a unique cultural moment? Regardless, Swift has provided a living case study in how fandom translates into GDP movement. Universities and business schools are already using her tours to teach macroeconomic concepts in real time.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.